Hey, what's up? Jack here with devslopes.com. Moving on with our JavaScript basics section. Let's move on and talk about some conditionals. So I've already got things set up here. I've got a new file, conditionals.js. I've got NodeMon run over here watching our file. And let's talk about loops and conditionals just a little bit. With conditionals, we evaluate a condition and take some code path depending on the value of that condition. So let's look at some examples here. So we can say let A equals 9. And then we can say let B equal, just say 32. All right. Now for this conditional, we'll use an if else, and you'll use if else quite often. So we can say if A is greater than B, and then we can say else if A is strict equality to B, or we can just use else. Now then, A is obviously not greater than B, so we're going to get false here. A is not equal to B, so we're going to get false here. So then it falls through, everything else falls into this else category here. So we got false, false, true. And actually this isn't true, it's just the catch-all. So when neither two of these conditions are met, then it falls into this else category. So we could just say something like here, console.log A is greater than B. And then here we could say console.log A is equal to B. And then else, if it's not greater than or equal to, we know it must be less than. So we can say console.log. If I could type tonight, we could say A is less than B. And if we save that, you see over here, indeed, we do get A is less than B. So, pretty straightforward. You'll use if and if else and if else conditions quite often. So right here we can say anything that returns a Boolean value can be the condition. So in that regard, we can change things. So we could say if A plus B is greater than A times B minus 248. And this right here evaluates to 42 is greater than 40, which is true. And we could say else. So right here we could say console.log the condition is true. Otherwise we could say console.log the condition is false. So if we save it here, you see we get the condition is true. So we evaluate the condition and then we take the code path depending on the value of that condition. So it's true, so we went through this first code path right here. Now you can also multiple conditions. Multiple conditions can be chained together. So we can use double ampersands, which is the same as and. Or we could use double pipes, which is the same as or. And the double pipes are on the backslash key. You hit shift and hold and press that key, and that gives you the pipe. It should be right below your delete key. So an example of this, we could say if true and true So right here we've got, obviously this condition is true, and then and this condition is true. So the whole expression, by using the and, both of these has to be true. So in this case, we're going to get this first console log to print right here. So if we save it, you see right here we get true. Now by the same token, you can see here, so right here, we're using the and again. So this one's true, this one's false. So they're not both true. So this is going to evaluate to false. And if we save it, you see right here, we get false. Now, or on the other hand, only one side has to be true. So again, if we used or up here, both being true, it would evaluate to true. But in this case here, let's just say we said true or false. If we save that, you see here we get true. So even though one side on this right here is false, with the or, it's just one or the other has to be true. And we could reverse these. We could say false or true, save it, and we get the same thing. So that's how the and the or work. Now moving on, we could say we could do a conditional test like this. We could have, say, a variable so we could have a variable called is dark outside, and it's set to true. Now for the condition, we could say if is dark outside, so if is dark outside, we could print it's dark outside. Otherwise, we'll say it's daylight. So if we save that, right here we get it is dark outside. And if we change this value to false and save it, you see now we get it's daylight. So now let's move on and look at a switch statement. So we could say, let color equals red. And then we could have a switch statement to take an action based on what the value of this is. So we could say switch color, and we can say case yellow. Now with the switch statement, in each case you put a colon here, not a semicolon. And then we're going to indent in, we're going to say console.log yellow. And also, unless you need to put a break here, otherwise it'll fall through to the next case. So we're going to put a break there. And we'll say case green. And we'll put another break statement there. Now then, for the catch-all on a switch statement, there's instead of having a case here, you put a default statement. So we've got case yellow, case green, case red, and then a default statement. So if we pass in, say, black, it's going to hit this default because none of these cases match. So if we save it, I have an error. Because I did not put an assignment operator. We got to have that equal sign. Okay. So we set our variable equal to red, and then we went through the switch statement, and it looks through each one of these cases until it finds a match. Well, it found a match here with red, and it printed the color as red. If we change this to yellow and save it, you see here we get the color as yellow. If we change it to black, it should hit this default statement, and you see here we couldn't determine the color. So that's how a switch statement works. They're very handy in a lot of cases. Alright, so let's move on and talk about loops. And with loops, we run some block of code over and over again until a given condition is met. So the first one we'll take a look at is a while loop. So we can say, we'll just go ahead and console log here, while loop, and the way we'll go ahead and set up a variable here for our counter. And we'll leave the counter at 5. Now the way a while loop works is we say while, and then we put in a statement here. Counter is less than or equal to 10. So we put two operators here, less than or equal to 10, and then we put a block, and we say console.log. And actually, let's use our template strings here. We're going to put a backtick. Now, I did a couple of things in this counter variable here. So each loop through, it's going to check to see if counter is less than or equal to 10. If it is, then it's going to print the value is, and it's going to print the value of the counter. But then we added the postfix increment operator here. So then after it prints, it's going to increment it by 1. So it should print from 5 up to 10 and then stop running, because at that point this condition won't be met anymore. So let's go ahead and save it. And you see here we get the values 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's for our while loop. So now we can look at a do while loop. So we'll say console.log do while loop. And we'll go ahead and reset our counter to 5. And then here we run through a loop before we ever check the condition. So we say do and then open up our code block. And we're going to use template strings here again. And instead of doing the increment operator here, we'll just go ahead and do it in a second statement. So we'll do that. And then after our closing brace here, we go ahead and say while counter is less than or equal to 10. If we save it, you see here we get to our do while loop. We get the values 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is how a do while loop works. One more loop we're going to look at is a for loop. So let's go ahead and console.log for loop. Now a for loop has 3 arguments in the setup. So we're going to say for, and then in parentheses we're going to say let x equal 0, and then a semicolon. And we're going to say x is less than or equal to 10, and then another semicolon, and then x plus plus. And actually, we'll go ahead and set x equal to 5. We'll go ahead and set x equal to 5 here. because we did in our other counters here. So we've got a for statement. We've got let x equal 5. And while x is less than or equal to 10, we're going to run through this loop. And with each loop, we're going to increment x. So we'll put our block here. And then all we've got to say is console.log template string, the value of, or we'll just say the value is, and then x. Because every loop through, x is what we're looking at. So let's go ahead and save that. And you see here in our for loop, we get the value is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, if we change this declaration here, we could change that to 0. And all that will happen is it will start at 0 instead of 5. And you can see here, if I do that, we get the value of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's how a for loop works. And you'll use for loops quite a bit. We'll look at them more in depth in some code later on when we start building our API. But for now, that's what we're going to talk about. This is just a quick introduction to loops and conditionals. And let's go ahead and move on and look at some functions.